Nice. So it seems like you have some opposition to factory farming, but you don't see a problem with painlessly killing. Is that a good general overview of the situation?
Yeah, I'd be a bit more specific, although I agree with your characterization.
Okay, sure. Well, are there any like specifics you want to lay down now so that I can pick up on them later if we need to?
Sure. So the first thing is that with respect to factory farming, I'm agnostic, but leaning toward that I should probably stop in any way supporting it, although I'm just not clear. And then also, I want to emphasize that I'm not really objecting to anything. I'm more trying to have this conversation in the spirit of, hey, listen, you think veganism is like morally preferable position to have here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it might be. I'm leaning toward that. But here's like a psychological block I have to becoming a vegan. So I'm not saying like, oh, look, here's my argument, you need to address it. We shouldn't I'm trying to emphasize there shouldn't be an oppositional approach. If you start trying to, not that you will, but if you start trying to run like, well, you can't meet this burden that I put here, or you can't name a particular trait. Yeah, I may not be able to, but I'm trying to have this conversation in the spirit of, hey, try to work with me to get around the psychological block. Because if veganism is the morally like right position, then I want to be one. So there's no point in being like needlessly oppositional. That's it.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think if you can't name a trait, that is walking you through it. But I think I understand your position a little bit better now. Would you be against? So you're leaning against factory farming, right? But you're not fully there, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I take it that means you currently support the animal agriculture industry.
What do we mean by support there?
Like you give your financial support to it by purchasing products like meat, milk, eggs, leather, etc.
So, yes, but I don't know if financial support is the same as support. I think, yeah, I wouldn't go there. I don't think they're the same.
Sure, well, that's all I mean by support in this case.
Okay, well, for the sake of the recording or just clarity, because in my mind I'm going to confuse the two, it would be good if we just said financial support instead of just support, because I think they're importantly different.
Sure, I'm happy to try and use that language. I might forget, but yeah, I'll try and do that. I guess I would just ask that if we had an equivalent human industry, like a human agriculture industry that treated humans the same way we treat animals. So in the egg industry, grinding male chicks alive on their first day of life. In the dairy industry, forcibly impregnating females, taking their calves away from them, bolt gunning animals in the head, hanging them upside down, slitting their throats, to get human meat, milk. We can imagine human eggs. Would you give your financial support to that industry?
So, I have two things to say to that. So, the first is going to seem like a non answer. And if you don't like that, then I'll go to the second, which is a direct answer, I guess. So, the first thing I'm going to say to that is let's just say I don't know. The question, and this is what I was trying to get at in the beginning, shouldn't be like what trait I can name or how I could avoid inconsistency. But what I'm trying to get around here is um, I'm agnostic about factory farming for the particular reasons that I've cited. So if you could address those specifically, I just think that'd be more productive. Okay, but that's not an answer. I admit that. Now, if you want a specific answer, so what's the trait, right? Would I be okay in the human case? So no, in the human case, I would not be okay with that. Um, Now, what's the trait? And I'll attempt to name it, but before I name it, I want to say my strategy so you just see where I'm going. Um, right, when I name a trait, you're gonna give a reductio. So what I'm gonna
Sure.
do is I'll just say,
If I can
yeah,
just pick up on one thing, I'm I'm happy where this is going. I just want to flag this now. I'm not actually sure what reasons you've given for being agnostic to factory farming. So I'm just saying that now so we can potentially dig into them later. Um, and yeah,
Okay, no
I also
problem.
haven't actually asked you to name a trait yet. Which it's going to seem redundant me stopping you here, but it's just because I want to phrase it properly. I'm going to ask you. This is the name the trait part. What's uh, Actually, sorry, can we get in? You said you would not support the human case, right? Sorry, just
Yes,
okay,
yes.
right. And then I just want to make sure it's phrased properly. Just going to ask you, what's true of the animals that, if true of the humans, would make it okay for you to give your financial support to the human agriculture industry?
Okay, so I want to be clear. I'm going to answer. I'm just going to give more of a preface first. The preface is that how I understand name the trait to work is that I'll say a trait and then you give like a reductio. So I'm going to start off by saying the reductio that I bite, right? The reductio I accept, and I'll just work backwards from there to list off the traits that get me to the bullet that I'm anyways going to bite. So the bullet I'll bite is what trait am I okay with? Well, once we get enough traits on the table such that the thing in question is animal or sorry, not is cow or chicken or whatever animals are factory farmed. Once the traits make it such that the thing we're talking about is cow or very much cow-like, yeah, then I'll be comfortable with saying it's okay to factory farm that thing.
Okay, so do you want to give a trait or a collection of traits?
Yeah, I will. But you understand the 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 thing I'm trying to get at when I name the traits is that I'm trying to create the end product here, namely like the animal that we actually do factory farm. So
I
at the
mean,
end process,
like if you just say the trait is like being a cow, then you've ended up at a place where it's like uh, look, I think it's better to like not work backwards. Just follow, just go with the flow. Just say what traits or trait is sufficient.
right? But I'll do that. I'm not trying to avoid this. I just want to be very clear. Um, what I'm trying to do is work to the end result where you are going to have to go, oh, so the reductio is you're happy to factory farm cows or very much like cow things. And I'll go, yeah, I am. So we could just start off here with you running that reductio, but if you refuse to do that, no problem. I can name the traits that get us to something that's cow or very much cow-like, if you really insist I do that.
Yeah, I would prefer if like the question was answered and you told me what's true of the animal that if true of the human would justify um, supporting the human agriculture industry.
Okay, so there's a lot of traits here. Um, let's see. I'd start off with, and it's obviously not any particular one of them. Let's say I name like 20 traits. It's going to be that for every trait I list, that's going to provide like some reason I have for not wanting to factory farm that thing. And when you get enough of these traits, we go from, well, let's say we start off with 0. Then I'd be like, yeah, we could factory farm that thing. As you name more traits, there's going to be like a gray zone and then a green zone where I'm like, absolutely not, we cannot do that. So I just want that to be clear. So the traits I'd start naming are going to be things like, okay, intelligence, the way the thing looks, the size of the thing, the capacities of the thing, the productivity of the thing, the productivity the thing is capable of engaging in, the relation that thing bears to other sentient creatures, the causal consequences that occur when factory farming that thing, the potential causal consequences that will occur when factory farming this thing, the parents of this thing, the genetic relations this thing has to other things that we value, the personal attachment that people have to the thing in question, um, the subjective enjoyment that the thing is capable of having, the recognition of the value of one's own life is also going to be, I think, relevant here. Um, yeah, I think roughly those are the traits that strike me as important.
Okay, that is a lot. I do believe a few of these can be grouped together. I'll just read them out so that we're on the same page. Um, Intelligence, appearance, size. the capacity of the thing. I'm not really sure what that point means. Potentially that's a typo. Productivity, relation to others, causal consequences, parents, genetic relations, personal attachment, capacity for well-being, and recognition of the value of life.
Yeah, those are all things I would say that increase the thing's value. But I want to add that those are not all the traits necessarily. And if you give me a reductio that I'm not happy biting, I'll just hedge that reductio by adding in more traits, right? Until we get to a reductio I'm happy to bite. And as I've already stated, that reductio is just going to be like cows or very much like cow things.
Well, I mean, that kind of just seems like you're saying these actually. I mean, you can change your answer later on, but it's not going to change the fact that the answer you gave leads to a reductio or a contradiction.
Right. So what I'm trying to
If you're
emphasize.
saying, so it's not actually like an escape, right? If you contradict yourself, you contradict yourself. It doesn't mean much to be like, oh, well, you can show my position leads to a contradiction, but I can actually just have a different position. It's like, okay, well, the position you laid out still leads to a contradiction.
Right. So what I was trying to emphasize when I said, like, I could just start with the reductio I'm happy to bite, is I was trying to convey that if you catch me in some sort of consequence that I don't like, it's trivial. It's not in virtue of my position. My position is I'm happy to kill things that are very much cow-like. If you catch me in some sort of consequence I'm not happy with, it's merely because I failed to adequately account for my position, not that my position is like inherently flawed. So that's why it's not ad hoc. If you catch me in some sort of reductio, it's not in virtue of the fact that I've been caught in a reductio that I'm going to modify my position. It's just that I think my end position is one that is reductio-less, or at least the reductios on my end position is one I'm happy to bite. So if you catch me in some sort of misarticulation of that end result, then I'll just be like, oh, okay, I didn't mean to list that. I'll give it.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're saying you just can't defend your position, I'd still consider that pretty damning.
What?
Well, what you've essentially said there is like, if I catch you in some kind of reductio or contradiction, because it's not always necessarily like some crazy reductio, you might just contradict yourself. Then that's just a failure of you to articulate your position. And it's like, okay, well, that may well be true, but like it seems like by saying that, you're just saying that you can't articulate or defend your position, which still seems pretty damning.
No, I've articulated my position clearly many times. My end position is it's okay to kill cows or very much like cow things.
Right. Well,
Now,
what I'm talking
hold
about
on.
by your
I want to
position
finish. I want to
is
finish
the
this point.
no, no,
Wait,
because you're
wait.
talking about the wrong thing. What I mean by your
Hold on. I
position
want to
when
finish
I'm
what I was
saying
saying. What I
I'm
was saying. Hold on. I was in the
is
middle of making a point. You interrupted.
you're
Could you let
talking
me
about a
finish and
different
then I'll.
thing. I'm just talking about the
Okay, but
traits you've given.
fine. But can I finish my point? I don't think it's productive to have interruptions.
Sure, go ahead.
So what I was saying is that my end position is very much that you could kill a cow or very much like cow thing. Now, if you catch me in a reductio that results from my end position, then you've got me. But if I've merely failed to communicate the precise amount of traits that get me to that end result, and that's what results in the reductio, then that's trivial. That's not important.
Sorry, can you repeat the last part?
Yeah. If you catch me in a reductio or contradiction, because merely because I failed to list the sufficient amount of traits to get to that end result that I've stated, then you catching me in this contradiction or reductio is trivial because it's not my end position. It was just a failure to get there. That's all.
Yeah, I still think it's pretty damning if you can't I get there, right? Like if you're saying, oh, I just can't provide a defense of this, which seems to be what you're saying, then I consider that pretty damning.
You think it's damning if I can't get there?
Yeah, if you can't list something that makes it okay to farm animals and not humans, I think that's pretty damning.
Well, I mean, I just listed like how many things? I listed a bunch of things.
Right. I mean, we're talking about this in the scenario where you contradict yourself or lead to a reductio, though. right?
Right, I know. All I'm saying is whether or not the reductio you catch me in is going to be significant is going to depend on why you caught me in a reductio. But that doesn't even matter because you didn't get me in one. So let's just sideline this whole convo. Let's go straight to the reductio. What's the reductio with my position?
Sure, I mean, you're the one who brought up this tangent, though. Okay, I'm just organizing the ones that you have. Okay. Uh, just three more to get through. Okay, when you say, like, uh, what's true of the animal agriculture industry that would make you, what's true of the animal that if true of the human would make you support the human agriculture industry, what did you mean by the trait parent?
Right. Okay, what I meant is if the creature we're talking about, if its parents are human, that's going to be an important trait to me.
Okay, well, I asked what's true of the animal, so I guess I'll put that as non-human parents.
Yeah, that's a fair characterization.
Okay. Um, okay, so I'll just run through the traits one more time. You gave intelligence, recognition of value of life, capacity for well-being, productivity, and then I just group those together. And then another one would be appearance, size, non-human parents, genetic relations, and an additional one would be the relation to others, causal consequences, and personal attachment. That would be the final group. And I think you could get through all of those by just asking about a mentally disabled Vulcan who lives on the moon. Would you be like okay with factory farming them?
What's a Vulcan?
Oh, give me a sec. I'll post a picture.
You're posting on the general chat?
Yeah. I'll just be 1 second. Um, there we go. Have you seen Star Trek?
No, of course I wouldn't be fine with factory farming that.
Ah, okay. Well, so do you realize that that's a contradiction, a logical contradiction?
No, of course not. Look at my traits again. So I said
Are
the
you saying
appearance.
that's not a logical contradiction?
Wait, you're talking about me committing a logical contradiction?
Yes.
No, of course not.
Okay. Well, I mean, it seems like it is a logical contradiction because it seems like it is and is not okay to kill that, to factory farm that being. Because initially you said a being with those traits would be acceptable to factory farm, and now you're saying it wouldn't be. So it just seems like a logical
No, absolutely
contradiction.
not. The traits I listed would bar the thing you've just shown from being factory farmed. As I listed, one of the traits was appearance. What I had in mind was the right kind of appearance that would sort of put us off to killing the thing. Now, that
Sure.
thing looks
Okay.
very
So
much human-like.
you
So that's the kind of
might
appearance
need
I would not be
to.
okay with killing.
So you might need to hone in on what exactly you mean by appearance then.
I would say I don't have a general principle, but it's a case by case thing, and the case by case thing I would like bank on is if I sort of have the visceral or intuitive reaction that the thing in question is human-like or within the range of human.
Okay, so I mean, because let's remember how the question was asked. It was asked about the animals. So can I make that like appearing non-human?
It's a bit more than that. It's okay. So appearing non-human is a necessary but not sufficient condition with respect to my trait of appearance. So other conditions may pop up, but I think I would just say the appearance. What's going to make me say yes or no with respect to the appearance is the the um, the consequence of killing that sort of thing with that sort of appearance. What kind of consequence? Case by case basis. If you give me a reductio that I'm
Okay.
fine with, I'll say no, that's not barred from appearance. And if I don't like the reductio, I'll say no, that's barred from appearance.
Sure. So I'm just trying to understand because remember this is something true of the animals that if true of the human would make it okay to support the human agriculture industry financially, right? So one of the traits you gave was appearance. So I'm just trying to understand what that trait means.
Right. I can't give you a precisification, but I don't think that's really an issue. I give you a general guise of what I mean by that. And what I mean by that is, well, if
So you
the
can't give me a what?
I can't give you a precise criteria for what
What?
I mean by appearance.
I mean, I maybe don't have to understand it 100%, but I should be able to understand it. Otherwise, if like the trade is just like I can't tell you, bro, then we're not gonna get
No, I'm
anywhere.
not saying that at all. Right. I agree with you. I'm not doing that. As I said, I can't give you like a precise criteria. However, here are some things that I use to guide this trait that I've listed. If the animal looks quite human-like, and I could give you examples to make this more clear. So, like I would say, monkeys look quite human-like, and I'm not okay with killing monkeys due to that. A fish doesn't look human-like, so I'm okay with killing a fish with respect to that trait. Now, many instances you could give me of like a deformed human, I would say no, that's way too human-like. So maybe some characteristics are like, you know, two legs, arms, the kind of neck and facial structure typical to humans, that sort of thing. So no, I'm not just saying like I don't know, bro. That's not what I'm doing.
Okay, so it's just the trait that's true of the animals is not appearing human-like,
Right, that's one of the many traits. Yeah.
right? Okay, so like for example, you wouldn't be okay with, factory farming mentally disabled mochlins that live on the moon, right? Um,
Correct.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I still think that leads to a pretty crazy uh, reductio because, like, essentially, if we had a being, you didn't know what they looked like, and I'm asking, oh, is it okay to like um, I show you like the subjective experience of this being, and they're a mentally disabled creature that lives on the moon, and I'm like, oh, is it okay to factory farm this being? You're like, oh, well, what do they look like? I would consider that a pretty crazy reductio personally. Just like
Well,
granting
that's not.
rights based on how you look.
Well, I'm not doing that. I've listed a whole host of traits, so I'd want to know what they look like. I want to know the causal cons. Or I listed so many. Why are you
Wait,
cherry
what do you
picking? I
mean?
listed.
What do you mean you're not? What do you mean you're not doing that? I've accounted for all the traits you gave me.
No, of course not. Look at the traits, right? I'd want to know
Yeah,
what's the causal
intelligence,
cons.
recognition of the value of life, capacity for well-being, productivity. Those can all be equalized with mental disability, not appearing human-like, size, non-human parents, genetic relations can all be accounted for by species. Obviously, not the not appearing human-like part. Relationships to others, causal consequences, and personal attachment can all be trait equalized by just being on the moon. There we go.
No, of course not. Whether someone lives on the moon or not is not going to tell me what kind of causal consequences occur if I were to factory farm that thing. I'd want to know about that.
Okay, so there's also ambiguity with causal consequences, right? I'll accept my part in this by potentially maybe jumping to some conclusions, not being certain about what you mean by the traits you've given. So if you want to expand on what you mean by causal consequences, we can go about that.
Okay, I'd like to do that with examples. I think that's just the best way to do it. Right. So if we had a rock, and the causal consequence of, say, like destroying that rock would be, well, this kid who's extremely attached to it is going to be devastated. I would say, no, you can't destroy the rock. If, however, there's no such relation like
Right.
that.
So
Nobody cares.
you're not really giving me like a trait. I'm just asking what you mean by that trait.
What I mean is what I mean is the kind of feelings others have to that thing.
Okay, right. So that seems like it could be accounted for by living on the moon.
Not necessarily. Yeah, it could be, but not necessarily. It's not like an entailment.
Like the
right?
point of them
I want to
being
know
on the
about
moon
that.
is that no one even knows they're there. They don't have any relationship to people.
They'd have relationships to themselves, right? Is this like I'm confused about the hypothetical? But anyway, it doesn't necessarily follow. It's not like completely unaccount. If you tell me whatever thing you just specified lives on the moon, it's not, you misrepresented me. It's not as though the only question I have is, well, how does the thing appear? No, I've got a whole host of questions. What kind of relationships do these things have with each other?
No.
What's their capacity to understand their situation? How devastated are they capable of feeling toward loss? All these things are relevant.
Hey, now you're just adding in more traits, right? So I'd like to go with the set you initially gave me.
No, those things are accounted for by, first of all, intelligence, and also the capacity, and I said this, the capacity the thing has to recognize the value of their life. Did I not say that? I said that.
Yeah, that can be accounted for with the traits I gave you.
So I'm not adding more traits. These are part of the traits I listed.
Okay, sure. Um, yeah, if you just want to say those subcategories of the traits you gave, that's fine, but I think they could be accounted for by the traits I gave you. So the causal consequences, what exactly are you referring to by causal consequences? Just like whether people would care?
Again, I don't have a very specific criteria, but it's the kind of calculation I make when I do any action, right? If throwing a rock into the road is not going to have a causal
Okay.
consequence that I don't like, then I'll do it. And if there's some sort of causal consequence that might happen, like some biker tripping on that rock or some car hitting, then I won't do it. So that sort of thing. If you telling me, well, oh, killing these things on the moon will lead to like devastation in whatever species you're talking about, if like holocausting them would lead to those particular members within the species like being devastated and having like tremendous emotional agony, then I may not. It depends on like the degree of devastation they could feel. So that would be a rough guise by what I mean by causal consequence.
Sorry, it's just still not clear, right? Like when you say like, so obviously you're saying something like the causal consequence of like factory farming a cow is different to a human, right? Like, what exactly do you
Yeah.
mean by the causal consequence? Just like,
Okay, I'm going to want to
maybe
farm
show
or
me how that would be different.
I'm not saying it necessarily is. I'm just saying that's a trait
Well,
that I take into
if
account.
it's not a difference, then you just haven't told me something true of the cow that isn't true of the human.
No, I've told you a trait, and I've said that this trait can be active sometimes, but not all the time.
Wait, but do you
So,
understand
for
what I
instance,
said? That if you're saying like it's not a difference, that's just not an answer to the question then?
wait, I'm confused. When did I say it's not a difference?
Like just then, but or you said you're not saying it is.
Okay, I'm a little lost here. What did you ask, and what did I say that you think was like completely a non-answer? Could you repeat that? I'm lost.
Well, potentially the trait is not an answer to the question what's true of the animal that, if true of the human, would make it okay to support the human agriculture industry. Like if it's something true of both beings, then it doesn't seem to be an answer to the question, right?
Okay, so we could just say when this trait is active, and the trait I'm fine. So if I said earlier that right, I see how I could have been communicating a non-answer. So I'll stipulate that the trait is going to have to be active. So the trait here would be a lack of negative causal consequence.
Okay, that's a little bit unclear because I mean, I would just say a negative it depends what you mean by negative causal consequence. Like that just seems to be something like I would say that's just true of like killing cows, I consider that a negative consequence. So you might have to.
So what's the negative consequence?
Oh, I would just say it's causing rights violations. But I mean, that's going to
I don't
depend
believe
on
in
what
rights
you mean.
violations. I don't
Yeah,
believe in
that's
that.
why I'm asking what you mean by negative causal consequences.
I could give you examples. I think that's the best way to communicate it. So if there's a cow and there's like a family of people, or even just one person who has like an emotional attachment to this cow, well, then I would think it's wrong to kill this cow, as the trait of no negative causal consequence is not present. So there's, right, like I could clearly point to, well, if you kill this cow, well, here's the causal result, namely, like this kid is going to be devastated, and therefore we shouldn't kill the cow. Now, I don't see that with respect to killing like chickens or cows or whatever. I don't.
Right.
In a lot of cases, I don't see that.
So is it just that somebody else cares about them?
Yeah, that's one of the things. But it could also be like, well, if you kill this animal, well, then like the global warming industry will get fucked. Or, yeah, I think just generally, I think it's quite obvious what I mean, but I don't
Well,
know.
I don't think it's obvious what you mean. Um, so you mean something like others care about them, or it will lead to global warming or something?
Right. So what I'm trying to say is that I don't see something inherently wrong with killing these animals. There's nothing inherently wrong. Now, if you could give me some sort of like drawn out causal consequence that'll lead to something that most people will reject, then yeah, I'm going to reject it. In the same way, like going on a walk in the afternoon is not inherently wrong, but if like you could tell me, oh, well, if you go on a walk, well, then you're going to cause an accident that's like devastating, then yeah, I won't do it. So I'm trying to, yeah, just what you intuitively take some action that you think is like neutral, and then stipulate a bunch of scenarios in your head. Well, that neutral action will lead to a bunch of negative things, and if it does, then I'm going to say, yeah, don't do it.
Okay, right. Okay. Well, I mean, it seems like you haven't. All right. It seems like I have accounted for every trait then. So, yeah, let's go with heptapods. Do you see that most recent image posted in general chat?
No, let me look. Okay, yeah. What about that?
Would you be okay with factory farming heptapods that live on the moon that
No,
are mentally disabled? Why not?
no,
I mean, that seems like a logical contradiction because
no.
they've
It's
got
not.
every
I
trait
told you
mentioned.
appearance. I told you appearance.
Do you think? Sorry, you think those? Let me. You think these?
Look, I think it's very clear. Look at the images you
Do
sent
you think
and ask yourself.
these appear human-like?
Let's look at it like this: the things that you posted, are they more closer to looking like human, or are they more closer to looking like a chicken? It's very obvious the answer is human, and that's why I'm uncomfortable killing them. I think that's
You
extremely
really
obvious.
think they look human-like? These beings, the
First of all, that
ones
doesn't
that I
answer my
just.
question. It doesn't answer my question. Are they more closer to cows or humans? The answer is humans. Second, it doesn't matter if they don't look human-like. The point is, I listed appearance, and what I mean by that is human-ish. And
What we got to was human-like when I asked you to expand on what you mean by appearance. If you're going to say heptapods are human-like, then that's pretty bizarre to me.
so that's trivial. All that would show is that my understanding of human-like is not like the average understanding of human-like. But that's not a
Yeah. So
reductio.
so we might have to hone in what you mean by human-like. I mean, okay.
Sure. So
But just to be really clear, you're saying that these heptapods, the one that I just replied to in general chat, are human-like?
I don't know what you mean by that. Like if you're asking
What
with the
as
average.
as what you as the trait you gave, right? The trait you gave was human-like appearance. So I'm just saying you would categorize that as human-like appearance.
Yeah, when I say human-like, I have that sort of thing in mind. Yes.
Okay. So okay, when I
You realize
say
this is not, hold on, you realize that this is
human-like,
not an
I
empirical
have
claim that you could like dunk on me
sort
for.
of
It's not like I'm making the
things
claim like,
in mind. Yeah, I
what?
never said it was. I never said it was.
Okay, good. I just want to be
I'm just
clear.
very, very, very surprised. Okay.
What's the problem? I don't see a problem.
I didn't say there's a problem. I just said I'm very surprised
At,
at the fact that you consider that human-like.
that's utterly irrelevant. Can we get to the reductio?
Well, I'm going to have to ask what you mean by human-like appearance. Otherwise, I won't be able to equalize the traits.
I gave you a heuristic earlier, which was, does this thing appear more like a human than it does a chicken? If the answer is
Okay,
yeah,
okay. So by appearing human-like, you mean appears more like a human than a chicken.
roughly yes.
Okay. More like a human than a chicken.
Wait, okay, here's the best way to put it. I would say like this. On the one end of this look-like spectrum, you have like literally a chicken. On the other end, you have human. And there's like a slider that goes back and forth. The more you slide that slider to the direction of chicken, the more I'm going to say, with respect to the appearance trait, it's less valuable. The closer it gets to human, the more I'll say it's valuable.
Okay, yeah, I would say that the reductio is that we have a mentally disabled creature that lives on the moon, right? So they're not intelligent, they've got no recognition of the value of life, they've got a reduced capacity of well-being equal to that of a non-human creature. They can't be productive. They're of a smaller size. They don't have human parents. They don't have genetic relation to humans. They don't have relationships to others. Nobody else cares about them. It's not going to lead to global warming, and there's no like personal attachment to them. The reductio is that you've got this creature living on the moon. I'm asking you, is it okay to factory farm this creature? And you're just saying, oh, it depends if they look sufficiently like a chicken. If they look like a human, it's not okay. If they look like a chicken, it is. So you're granting rights based purely on appearance, which I would consider like an absolutely disgusting position.
Yeah, that's a non sequitur. That's complete non sequitur.
No, that's the reductio you have to grapple with.
Right, but you just said that I'm granting rights based off only appearance.
Sure,
that's a non sequitur.
It wouldn't be granting rights. It would be it's okay to factory farm them or not. Support their factory farming based on their appearance.
No, that's just a non sequitur because
in order to say no, that's just like it's just intense.
Are you going to let me finish? Yeah, if you're going to interrupt me, you're not going to get my explanation for my assertion. No shit. So what I was saying is that it's a non sequitur because you just went ahead and equalized all the other traits I listed. I don't know, there was like 10 of them. And then with respect to the 11th, you said, and we haven't equalized the 11th, so therefore value is going to hinge on this 11th trait. Yeah, obviously, but it doesn't mean value is, and I'm granting rights based off only and exclusively the 11th trait. That's just a non sequitur.
No, because everything else has been equalized. So all that's remaining is the appearance of this being.
Right, so in that case, given that all is equalized, then I'm granting based off appearance, but that's not what you said. You said that I'm granting based off appearance, period. You forgot to mention all is equalized, right? You see how that's importantly different?
That's not true. That's why I went through the hassle of equalizing every trait beforehand. All that's remaining, if we had two creatures, one of which looked like a human, the only thing left to change in the other one is appearance. Right, so we've got.
Okay, fine. So maybe you misspoke, but you see,
we've got this being. They look human, right? The thing that would make it okay to factory farm them is literally their appearance.
Okay, but you see, right? But you see how that's importantly different from reducing my position to merely one. Maybe you misspoke, maybe I misunderstood, but you see why I would want to make that distinction.
Yeah,
obviously.
I would say I never reduce it to merely appearance.
Okay, fine. So maybe I was taking you too literally. I don't see the reductio exactly. Yeah, if you equalize all 10 traits that I listed, then value would hinge on the 11th. How is that a reductio? What's the problem?
Yeah, I guess if you might be comfortable with having like two beings, one of which is okay to factory farm, the other isn't, in virtue of a difference in their appearance. I think
and all the other traits.
Really horrible. No, because we have two beings. The only difference between them is their appearance.
Oh, okay, yeah, I misunderstood.
Yeah.
So
I would consider that a reductio. You might not, but I would consider that extremely crazy position.
Okay, and I don't consider it to be crazy, and neither does the vast majority of society for the vast majority of time. So what's your point?
Well, that's an empirical claim, and I doubt that you have data supporting that empirical claim.
My ability to back it up and its truth are irrelevant. Do you deny the claim?
I'm convinced of it. I guess I'm agnostic on that claim.
What? You don't think the vast majority of people? Okay, forget the history claim. Currently, the vast majority of people are not vegan.
I think the majority of people would consider your position. I don't think being vegan entails your. I don't think not being
Wait,
vegan
let's answer my
entails
question
your
first.
position.
The vast majority of people. Let's answer my. The vast majority of people are not vegan, obviously, right?
Oh yeah, of course not.
Okay, so what's the difference between what I'm describing and a cow?
The difference. What? I mean, that's like, I just don't see how they're the same. What do you mean? You haven't described a cow. You've described some features of a cow, right? Like, as far as we know, this being could be, yeah, we could have a human one or one that looks more like a chicken than a human. This is quite bizarre.
Okay, let's keep track of what's going on. I said the vast majority of people are not vegan. You agreed. And then what I'm trying to do is link being non-vegan to affirming that you could kill the sort of thing I've specified. Now, what I'm arguing and what I've said,
Well, that's just an empirical claim. If you're going to make a claim about what humans in general think, that's empirical. You don't have data to support that.
You agreed with me that most people aren't vegan.
Yeah,
now,
but
what
I
I'm
don't think
saying,
not being vegan means that you would necessarily agree with your position.
right? It's not a necessary entailment.
Okay,
But there's not a relevant difference. There's no relevant difference.
Then I have no idea why you're bringing up the fact that most humans are not vegan.
Because the position I'm saying is not relevantly different from that of being a vegan. And if most people agree with that they don't need to be vegan, then they're probably going to agree with my position as there's no relevant difference. And if most people agree with my position, then how are you going to call it absurd?
Well, I'm not convinced of that. I wonder, like, can we hone in? All right. Will you say, like, if we have a being, mentally disabled being, lives on the moon, right? Not part of the human species. Will you say it's okay to factory farm that being, depending on what they look like?
What about causal consequence? And
Yep. Those have all been equalized.
Right, provided there's no negative consequence, yeah.
Okay, so will you just say, if we have a mentally disabled being that lives on the moon, isn't part of the human species, what determines whether or not it's okay to factory farm them is what
Why
they
do you
look
keep
like?
leaving out causal consequence?
Because it's been equalized.
I didn't hear that. When you were listening to traits, I did not hear causal consequence. If you list that, then yeah, I'll bite that bullet quite fast, yes.
Okay, well, by causal consequence, we're talking about others care about them and it will lead to global warming, right?
Not just global warming. That's an example of just negative causal consequence, yes.
Those were the two things you gave by negative causal consequence.
No, they weren't. I gave an example of a rock being in the road, and I gave an example where you could go on a walk, and you think in your head a walk is a trivial act, and you could create a bunch of scenarios where it causes, say, a disaster. But also, I made it clear that those were just examples of the principle I'm talking about, namely negative causal consequence. So just add that in, and yeah, I'll bite the bullet, sure, and I don't see the problem with it.
Well, I'm not just going to add in something that's unclear, right? If you need to make it clearer, make it clearer. I don't really see how. I mean, it's like others caring about them and it leading to global warming have been equalized. So, what exactly do you mean by a negative causal consequence then? Beyond those two traits.
I gave you so many examples. We've been through this. I would just give example after example.
Sure,
take a trivial action. Yeah, what?
Oh, well, it's just not clear.
Well, I don't know what more to tell you. But even if it's not clear, that doesn't mean that you should now leave out the trait, right? You keep leaving it out. You can't do that just because it's not clear.
Well, I mean, I can't equalize for it if I don't know what it is. I'm asking you what it is.
Okay, but then don't leave it out, right?
Just tell me what it is.
That. Wait, hold on. Do you recognize that just because you're not clear on something doesn't mean you should leave it out when repeating back to me my answer?
I'm not leaving it out when appearing back to
you. You did. No, you did. You did. You left it out.
As far as I understood it, it had been equalized. If you're going to say I misunderstood it, then tell me what it is.
No, you left it out.
This is just not answering the question. Tell me what it is.
Right, you're not answering mine, buddy, and mine came first. Do you recognize that you left it out? Yes or no?
No, I don't recognize that I left it out because, as far as I understood it, it had been equalized.
Right, you're not answering mine, buddy, and mine came first. Do you recognize that you left it out? Yes or no? No, I don't recognize that I left it out because, as far as I understood it, it had been equalized.
No, I don't recognize that I left it out because, as far as I understood it, it had been equalized.
So when you were repeating back my traits, you included, by some means, by some entailment, causal consequence being equalized? I don't see that.
Yes, because I
How was that
understood it
entailed?
as others caring about them and it leading to global warming, both of which would be equalized by them being on the moon, right? As I said previously, being on the moon encompasses the traits related to isolation. Now, will you please tell me what you mean by causal consequence in this case, right? You're saying that the difference between, or rather a relevant trait between an animal and a human is causal consequences. You're just going to have to tell me what that means.
Okay, I can't. Do you want like a necessary and sufficient conditions for for a causal consequence? Is that what you want? Because I can't
No?
do that. You can't do that for nearly any definition.
Right. So you just can't tell me what it means. Is that true?
No, I didn't. I said I can't give you necessary and
Just tell
sufficient
me what it means
conditions.
then.
And I'm asking, what do you mean by that? Are you asking for necessary and sufficient conditions, or are you asking for examples? If examples, I've done that.
You can give a
If
definition.
necessary and sufficient conditions, I can't do that, but neither could almost anyone, so it's an unfair ask.
If
What do
you
you
can
ask?
give like enough examples that I can approximate it.
Oh, okay, no problem. So let me think. You're going to go on a walk. If that walk is going to lead to someone's house burning down, someone getting injured, someone getting killed, someone becoming depressed, someone having a manic episode, someone losing a lot of money.
Okay, so wait, so
Then I would.
can we pause it there? Because this seems like negatively affecting humans in some way.
Doesn't have to be humans. It could be just like creatures with sufficient sentience to experience a degree of horror that I'm not okay with.
So essentially causing some kind of sufficient amount of negative well-being, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess you would just say that what we do to animals in factory farms doesn't cross that threshold. Because it seems like that just seems like something that is like, I mean, that just seems like something that's not true of the animals, right? Like, surely what animals go through in factory farms is worse than like a human's house burning down. That just seems
Okay,
like a
so these are
category upper.
two different
Yeah.
questions. If you're asking me with respect to animal factory farms,
Well, the question was what's true of the animals that, if true, of the humans would make it okay to support um, the human agriculture industry, and you're saying a relevant trait is causing some amount of sufficiently negative well-being. That just seems like something that's, or rather not causing that. That just seems like something that's not true of the animal agriculture industry. So
okay,
that's
well, I
just a
think that
category error.
no, okay. I do see how if I were to try to bank out of it by saying, if we're talking about like what's actually happening in the animal agriculture industry, that's not going to work because you're specifically talking about that. So that I agree that won't work. However, a sufficient amount of harm caused or on lack of well-being caused to a creature of enough sentience that I value? No, I don't think so. I don't think that's what's being meant.
Okay, because you wouldn't consider cows having enough sentience?
Um,
So
we
this
could go
trait, causal consequences, or rather, you're saying the thing that's true of animals that not true of humans is causal consequence. What you mean by that is that thing true of animals is that killing them um, doesn't cause sufficient negative well-being to a being of sufficient sentience.
right, or that and could plausibly lead to harm to beings of enough sentience. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Um, and so I guess you would place cows under that, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I mean, then it seems like it could cause like massive amounts of harm to like mentally disabled humans, and you'd be like, yeah, that trait is equalized.
What are you talking about? All the other traits I listed would I said
Okay,
like
so if we have a
genetic.
mentally disabled creature who lives on the moon, right? They let's say they don't appear human-like, um, and when you factory farm them, right? When you factory farm them, mentally disabled humans are like suffering. They're like screaming out in pain, but they're not sufficiently sentient. So it's actually okay to be farming them, even if mentally disabled humans are just begging for mercy. Do you see how that's entailed by your position?
No, I don't.
I mean,
Given that's a negative causal consequence.
no, it's not, because it's not happening to beings of sufficient sentience.
That doesn't have to be the only negative causal consequence. It could be the relation people have to those humans, the fact that those humans, the appearance they have, right? You just said they're mentally disabled humans.
Those have all been accounted for.
No, you contradict yourself. If you say that they're humans, but the traits are accounted for, well, the traits I listed bar humans from being.
No, that's completely untrue, right? Because the being we're talking about factory farming is non-human. It's just entailed that a consequence.
Wait, you just said mentally disabled human, did you not? Maybe you misspoke, but you did say mentally disabled human.
I said mentally disabled creature. If I misspoke, I meant to say creature, right? But
right. You definitely.
Said by this trait was that killing them doesn't cause sufficient negative well-being to a being of sufficient sentience. So if killing them caused massive suffering to mentally disabled humans, that would be okay under this trait.
Mentally disabled humans?
Yes. Okay. Good. Let's really zone in on this trait. You agreed to this. Understand what we've understood this trait as is killing them doesn't cause sufficient negative well-being to a being of sufficient sentience, right? And you've said cows don't meet that level of sufficient sentience. There's plenty of mentally disabled humans that have less sentience than a cow. So if it causes
right, okay, I'm going to interrupt you because I know where I see where you're going and I see the problem here. Right, but that's not the only trait I named. If it was just sentience, you'd be right. But I listed negative causal consequence, the appearance of the thing being harmed.
No, you're just not understanding, because those were traits true of whether the being is okay to factory farm, not like who these negative consequences are going to spill over to.
But that's a negative causal consequence of farming the thing, and that was a trait I named.
That's oh my god. What we understand negative causal consequences are, according to you, is causing negative well-being to a being of sufficient sentience, right? So a cow is not a being of sufficient sentience, right? So it's okay to cause negative well-being to them. There are humans of sufficiently less sentience than just of any amount as a cow, or less sentient than a cow, could have the same amount of sentience as a cow, actually, which is reasonably high. And if you're saying we can cause massive unending suffering to them, right, because they fall in that category of which you've said it's okay to cause negative well-being towards, as a consequence of factory farming this other creature.
Right, but I added in the condition of negative causal consequence, which includes causing harm to a being of enough value, but it's also going to include things like what you're stipulating, which is that humans of low sentience are harmed. I'm not accepting that. That's a causal consequence I'm not accepting.
Okay, so now, yeah, if you want to change what you mean by causal consequence...
No, I'm not changing it. No, I'm not changing it.
It is changing, because you previously agreed that causal consequence meant killing them doesn't cause sufficiently negative well-being to a being of sufficient sentience. If you want to change that later, I'm happy for you to do that, but I want you to accept this reductio, because I'm not just going to let you weasel out.
Okay, I want to be clear. I stated earlier that if you catch me in this sort of reductio and it's not in virtue of my end position, then it's going to be in virtue of me just not articulating my position as perfectly as I should have. Now, if I had said that enough harm to a being of sufficient sentience is the only thing I mean, and I nailed that position down hard, then I'm making a retraction. However, what I actually meant was negative causal consequence, including but not limited to the kind of sentient level harm that you're talking about.
Okay.
Now,
I'm gonna want a few things from you, right? The first thing I want from you is to say that the position you previously articulated meant that it would be okay to factory farm mentally disabled species who lives on the moon, even if it caused massive unending suffering to human beings with the sentience level of a cow or lower. Can you please say that?
say that that was my previous position?
That was the position that you'd articulated.
Maybe, but that wasn't my position.
Okay, can you please say that the position you gave?
I don't remember the exact words I used, but it's irrelevant. Why are you trying to nail me down?
Can you please say that the position you gave entailed that it would be okay to factory farm mentally disabled beings who lived on the moon, even if it caused massive unending suffering to
Did you hear what I
humans with the
said? I
sentience
said
of
I
a
don't
cow?
remember the exact words I used. I don't remember the exact words I used,
Right.
but this is a cheap dunk.
Do you understand how
Oh my
that
fucking
was
god,
entailed by the position
dude! Do you not realize that first of all you had like so many slip ups this conversation where you said something that you later retracted, and I didn't hold you to it to an unreasonable degree. I'm like, if you misspoke, then I don't want to dunk on you for a misspeak. I'm not going to hold you. I'm not going to hold you. I'm not going to hold you. I'm not going to hold you to the position that you articulated when misspeaking.
If you said,
if you caught me for committing myself, if you caught me for accidentally committing myself to a position I don't hold, then move on and care about the actual position I have.
This is just
retarded.
like dishonesty at this point, right? Like
I'm being dishonest. I'm being dishonest because you want to hold me to a position that isn't mine. How is that dishonest?
I'm not holding you to a position that isn't yours. I'm asking you.
Oh, okay, you're not. Well, then my position is not the one you've articulated, so I'm not going to concede it.
I'm asking you to accept the consequences.
I told you I don't remember the words I used. Don't remember the words I used. Don't remember the words I used. So how can I concede that?
Do you accept that those were the consequences of the position you articulated?
Don't know the words I used. Don't know if it's the consequence, therefore. What do you not get about that?
So you don't actually know. So you don't actually remember the position you articulated.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact words I used. But if look, are you an autistic robot that only understands the literal things I say, or could you get the gist of the position I'm trying to articulate?
I mean,
right?
You're just being rude now.
Because you're trying to dunk on me for a misspeak, if that's what actually happened.
This has been a pretty long misspeak. I mean, come on, we've been at this for an hour.
Look, you have the recording.
What I'm trying to do is get you to accept the consequences of the position you articulated. If you're just going to say you can't remember the position you articulated, then okay, we'll
No. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that I have like this amnesia and I can't remember what I was saying. I remember what I said. The exact words I used and whether or not they necessarily commit me to the kind of thing that you're saying I'm committed to, I just don't know. We'd have to look at like the verbatim things I said. And I just can't recall them, and I don't think you could. What did I say exactly? What were the exact words I used? You don't know.
Nick's just joined. Nick, to fill you in, Bob has... he's changed his position, so I'll hone in on what he means soon. But we've had mentally disabled being who lives on the moon, who isn't part of the human species, and it's okay to factory farm them depending on what they look like. And now we're at mentally disabled being lives on the moon, and it's okay to factory farm them even if it causes brutal unending suffering to humans with the same level of sentience as a cow or lower. But now he's saying he means something different by causal consequence. So would you like to expand on what you actually mean by causal consequence, Bob? Because as it stands, I'm understanding it as killing them doesn't cause sufficiently negative well-being to a being of sufficient sentience. If that's not what you mean, please tell me what you mean.
Yeah, just to clear up your categorization of what I've said. When I was talking about causal consequence, I gave many examples. Going on a walk, causing someone to be sick, causing a fire, these sorts of things.
And we ended up at killing them doesn't cause sufficiently negative well-being to a being of sufficient sentience, and you agreed with that categorization of it, right? So if you'd like to change it, that's completely fine. Just tell me what you actually mean by it.
I think I was very clear that I couldn't give you a necessary. No, I was clear. I stated multiple times that I can't give you necessary and sufficient criteria. Wait, hold on. No. Don't interrupt me. I said multiple times that I can't give you necessary and sufficient criteria, meaning that if I then later agree to your categorization, it was not necessary and sufficient. Obviously, as I've stated, I can't do that. Right, so I'm not changing anything.
Right.
That's encompassed by why. That is encompassed. That is encompassed by why I said earlier. That is encompassed by what I said earlier.
Right. Well, I mean, it seemed like we had landed at an understanding of it, right? So are you just saying that you can't communicate the meaning of this trait?
Nope, not saying that. It's not entailed by what I said. Why do you think that's what I said, or why do you think I entailed that?
Can you communicate to me the meaning of this trait?
Yes, I've given you many examples of what I mean. That's communication.
Okay, please communicate the meaning of this trait to me then.
I've done that. I think what I need to communicate is that I'm not going to commit to necessary and sufficient conditions. You don't seem to get that.
So you can't tell me necessary and sufficient conditions for this trait.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah, there you go.
So you can communicate the meaning, but not with necessary and sufficient conditions?
Oh, yeah. About time you understood that, yes.
All right, it's just like...
Oh, it's stupid. It's stupid what I'm doing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy for you to try and communicate it without giving any like necessary and sufficient conditions. So you're just gonna like provide like what then? Like do you
examples?
Do you like have an understanding
intuition
of what
pumps,
this trait is,
these sorts of things.
Is it kind of just like vague gesturing at like something hidden under a blanket? And then when I say, oh, is it this? You're like, oh, it's not that. Is it this other thing? No, it's not that. Oh, what is it? Oh, I can't tell you that.
No, I was quite clear. In the beginning, I said, look, I'm going to give you traits. But what I'm aiming at is I want to get my end reductio to that of a cow or very much cow-like thing. Now, if you want to give a reductio in virtue of that position, sure. But any reductio you give me that is just in virtue of like a non-perfect articulation of the traits I'm naming, that's trivial. I'm just going to readjust what I've said. So no, I'm not playing this in the fog game. I've specified to you what my position is. I've done that clearly at the outset of this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's just like your position is separate to like whether you can name a trait, right? I'm like, if you can't make the trait of causal consequence clearer to me, then like I'm not sure if we can progress in this conversation. Because like it seemed like we reached common understanding. I asked if you meant if like killing them doesn't cause sufficiently negative well-being to a being of sufficient sentience, and like now you're saying it's not that. So I can't. It just seems like something that I can't understand.
Do you understand negative well-being?
Yeah, I understand what negative well-being means. Presumably.
So there you go. It's roughly got to be if it causes a being that I value, if it's going to cause a being that I value to experience a certain degree of negative well-being. Simple.
Okay, so previously it was killing them doesn't cause sufficiently negative well-being to a being of sufficient sentience. Now it's killing them doesn't cause sufficiently negative well-being to a being that you value. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. To a being Bob values. Alright, so killing them doesn't cause sufficiently negative well-being to a being Bob values is the new trait, right? But can I get your concession on the previous set of traits that would entail factory farming beings, even if that factory farming meant massive unending suffering to humans with the sentience of a cow or less? Will you accept that? I'm happy to say that's not your.
I told you. If you're talking about my actual position, of course not.
No, I'm not talking about
if
your
you're talking about
actual position. I'm talking about the position you previously gave.
right. So as
Would
far
you
as me
accept
being,
that?
are you gonna let me finish?
Can you start with a yes or no, please?
It's not a yes or no. I have to make a caveat. There's a caveat.
I mean, it is a yes or no question, but.
Well, yeah, if you want to ask me a loaded question, then sure. But here's the caveat. I don't remember precisely what I said, and I don't remember if that will commit me to the characterization that you're giving.
Right. So,
There you go.
the answer is you don't remember.
Precisely what I said to answer whether. No, I remember, just not precise enough to answer your question.
Okay. So I'm happy for you to give a yes, no, or I don't know.
I don't know. Simple. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
The position you previously articulate.
I don't know.
Okay, so let me ask the question, and then I'd love a yes, no, or an I don't know. Did the position you previously articulate entail that it was okay to kill mentally disabled beings who lived on the moon, even if that position led to massive unending suffering for human beings of the sentience of a cow or less?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well, listen back to the recording, and I think the answer will be quite obvious. Okay. So our current understanding of negative causal consequence is killing them that doesn't cause sufficiently negative well-being to a being you value. When you say a being you value, can you be more precise about what that means?
Roughly, it's just going to be a being whose suffering elicits a negative reaction in me or like the vast majority of the human species.
Elicits a negative. Whose suffering elicits a negative reaction in you or humans in general.
Yes. I could give an example. Like if a goldfish suffers, most people don't care.
That just seems like something that's not true of the cows, right? Like I would say humans in general, like experience a very negative reaction to animals like cows being hung upside down and their throat slit, right? They might not go vegan, but I've asked you for something true of the animals. That if true of a human, this just seems like something false of the animals.
I don't see a problem. You could just restate what I'm saying that's false of the animals in terms of something that's equivalent in truth value, but is making an active claim.
Sorry, I'm not understanding what you're saying there.
So what's true of animals is going to be, in this case, that they elicit like a negative reaction.
No. What we had was that killing them doesn't cause sufficiently negative well-being to a being who's... Oh, wait, yeah, sorry, give me 1 second. Yeah, what we had that's true of, say, cows, is that killing them doesn't cause sufficiently negative well-being to a being whose suffering elicits a negative reaction in you or humans in general, right? However, it seems that killing the cows does cause negative well-being to cows, and cows are a being whose suffering elicits negative reactions in humans in general.
Not sufficient.
So do you see how... Okay. So it doesn't...
I mean, obviously it's not sufficient because people are not vegan and they don't care.
So factory farming them just doesn't cause sufficient negative well-being to the cows, is what you would say.
Yes.
Okay, right. I mean, I don't see why the trade is this as opposed to just factory farming them doesn't cause sufficient negative well-being. So I guess
because of causal consequence. Because of causal, it could be that it may not.
What we're trying to understand here is the trait of causal consequence. So maybe let's stop like repeatedly invoking that term until we fully understood it.
I'm just waiting for reductio. What's the reductio on my position?
Well, I have to understand your position before I can give a reductio, and it's proving difficult to understand because every time I think I understand it, you say, oh, actually, I mean this other thing.
So I don't know why it's difficult to understand, because I told you what I'm trying to do when I'm naming the traits. What I'm trying to do is end up where we get something that's like, hold on, let me finish for fuck's sake. I'm trying to end up in a position where we get something that's cow or very much cow-like.
This is like irrelevant, right? Like what I'm seeking is traits and understanding of them. I'm not,
the whole purpose. No, it's not irrelevant. No, it's not irrelevant. The whole purpose of oh my freaking god, you're just over talking me. The whole purpose of naming traits is so that someone could turn around and go, oh, well, given these traits, we get this reductio. That's the whole point. So I'm coming up with a far more efficient. Oh my! Can I get a sentence out?
Well,
I'm trying to come up with a. Oh my goodness! Can I talk? I'm trying to come up with a far more efficient process than trait naming by circumventing the whole process and getting to the end. Oh my god!
Oh my god!
By getting the that's what. Yeah, it's annoying to be constantly interrupted. By circumventing this process and getting the end result that the person was seeking to begin with, which is just the reductio. So my position that I'm happy to get reductioed on is cow or very much cow-like things. Yeah, there you go. Why do you need to know anything else?
I'm not particularly interested in that. What I'm interested in is traits.
Well, no shit, because you can't do it. You can't give the reductio. You can't give it. You cannot give the reductio.
Let's not say that until, I'm just trying to understand causal consequence.
No, okay, if you had an immediate reductio on my position, you just give it. You would just give it. This is such nonsense. Yeah. If the position of cow was easily reductioed, you would just deliver one. So go. I'm waiting. Oh, I need to know what a negative causal consequence means. Right, that's what you need to know.
Yeah, if you give a trait, I have to know what that trait means.
Negative causal consequence. You don't know what that means. You can't understand what that means. If you cite something that
is normative.
If you cite something that the vast majority of people will object to, then that's a very good proxy. And no, it's not a necessary and sufficient condition. So don't nail me to that unreasonably.
No,
a good proxy here would be if the vast majority of humanity. A good proxy would be if the vast majority of humanity would reject the negative consequence that you're saying my position entails, then probably I'll reject that as a negative consequence. Got it?
I think what Nick said is pretty good. The position is just too vague to evaluate if it's indistinguishable.
Oh yeah, that's the problem. Vague, right? Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're just like it just seems like we're at this position where you can't actually describe what it is. I mean, whenever I try and arrive at some.
Whenever you try to mischaracterize me by nailing me to a necessary and whenever you try to mischaracterize me by nailing me to necessary and sufficient conditions, I object. Yeah, that's what happens. But you get my position.
It's quite ironic how, you see how all of that was you speaking over me, and then you start throwing a tantrum whenever. If you're going on some completely irrelevant ramble, and I try and redirect you to the conversation, you start crying about me interrupting you, whereas you just did that massive interruption.
No, that's not what happens. That's not what happens is, in the beginning of the conversation, I was reasonable with you. I wasn't interrupting you. I was being charitable, right? That's exactly what happened. You messed up 5 times. You misspoke and mischaracterized me a number of times. And when I'm wait, if all you did there was misspeak, then I'm fine. You misspoke. Let's move on. But then I misspoke. Arguably, I'm not even sure if I did. And the second I misspoke, all you cared about was getting me to make a concession that I committed myself to a position when I misspoke. And that was frustrating, as you had done that 5 times and I just let it slide. And anyways, somebody that's more concerned with what you say than your actual position is a sophist. You should care about what I think, not what I said.
No, I don't think so. I think it's totally fair to request some intellectual honesty and say hey, I understand if this isn't your actual position, but based on what you previously said, do you understand the consequences of that? I think that's just showing a little bit of intellectual honesty and humility, and it's a totally fair thing for you to expect from your interlocutor.
What did I say in response to that?
well, you said you don't know, right? But now you're
Right,
now
and
you're
then wait. Next question. How many times?
which
How
is
many times
which is
after?
fine,
How many times? How many times after I said I don't know? How many times after I said I don't know did you repeat the question?
I think I only got. I don't. I mean, I wanted to fully express the question. The point is like I think.
No.
Now,
How
see,
many
now I've
times
lost
after I
track
said
of
I
it.
don't know did you ask the question anyways?
I don't know.
A number of times. I don't know the exact number either, but a number of times. Right? Which is not what somebody does if they care about what the actual person's position is. I told you I don't remember what I said, and
Well,
you should
I
just move
said
on.
that
But
what
just
I wanted
repeating.
was just intellectual honesty from you, just accepting the position of your previous argument. If you're just going to say you don't know, then okay.
Are you implying I'm being intellectually dishonest? Do you think I remember, but I'm lying to you? Is that what you think?
No, I never said that. You might genuinely not know. That's fine.
So why are you invoking
But
intellectual honesty? Why is that relevant?
because you said it was wrong of me to ask that of you, whereas I'm saying it's
No,
not wrong. If
I didn't say that.
it's
That's
fine
a
for me to ask
mischaracterization.
that yes or
No,
no. I mean, you just said that. You just said
nope. I'll
implied
repeat
it
it.
was
I'll
wrong of
repeat
me
what
to
I said.
ask you, and
No,
I said I
I'll repeat what
wasn't
I said.
holding you to
No,
that
I'll repeat
position.
what I
I
said.
just wanted
What I said
intellectual
was, what I said
honesty.
was, what I
I'm not
said.
saying you're being dishonest by saying you don't know. I'm just saying that it's fine for me to expect intellectual honesty from you by saying yes or no about the entailments of your previous position. If you
Yeah, and I
don't
didn't say
know,
that.
that's completely irrelevant to whether or not it's okay for me to ask you whether you understand the entailments of your previous position.
Right, and I didn't say asking me that was the problem. If you look back, and you'll see that I was saying if you prioritize and make it a big deal as
Well,
to
I
what I
didn't
said
say,
as opposed to my position.
whether I prioritize it or makes it a big deal is pretty subjective. I just wanted a short stop in the
Wait. Hold
conversation
on.
to ask that of you. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I'll
subjective.
take a break
It's
to
subjective.
get
But
that
hold
intellectual
on.
honesty.
Are you going to retract your previous claim? Because you just said that I said that you can ask that. Then it turns out, no, that's not what I said. I said to prioritize it. Now, you may disagree that you didn't prioritize it, but it's not the same as, and now you must retract if you're granting this, that I had initially said, as you alleged, that you can ask that. Are you retracting that or not?
Can't ask that?
You initially characterized me as saying that you cannot ask whether what I had said committed me to a certain position. Then I
Well,
responded, no, I didn't.
yeah, sure. If I
Well,
said that you can't ask that, then yeah. If I said that you'd said that I can't ask that, then retract that. I'm not sure if I said that. That's not what I meant to say if I did say that.
good, I'm
I
not going to
mean,
hold you that. It's not a big deal. As should my initial statement that you interpreted as meaning that the criteria was necessary and sufficient.
yeah. Look, I think this convo does need a reset, as Nick says. I think I've shown. I'll sum this up by saying, like, I've shown the entailments. Of the two main trait collections you've given, one of them just entailed that it was okay to kill intellectually disabled beings who live on the moon, depending on what they look like. The other one said that it was okay
And the
to
causal
kill.
consequence,
Please
and the
stop
causal
talking over
consequence.
me. Please stop talking over me.
No, don't
Please stop
mischaracterize
talking
me.
over
That's the
me.
result of
Please stop talking
mischaracterization.
over me.
Don't
Please stop
mischaracterize
talking
me.
over
Don't
me.
mischaracterize me.
Please
Don't
stop
mischaracterize
talking
me. Don't
over me.
mischaracterize me. Don't mischaracterize me. Don't mischaracterize me.
Okay, so one of them showed that it was okay to kill intellectually disabled beings who live on the moon, depending on what they look like. The other one showed that it was okay
And the causal
to kill.
consequence, and all the other traits I listed that you're neglecting.
So the other one showed that it's okay to kill mentally disabled beings who live on the moon, who are not part of the human species, even if it led to massive unending suffering to beings with the sentience of a cow or less. Right? Now it just seems like an inability to understand the traits you're articulating. So I'm pretty much happy to leave the conversation there. If anyone else wants to have a go, I'm happy to pass it over to them.